Now in its 16th year, Campus Safety's Director of the Year program recognizes K-12 higher ed and hospital police chiefs, security directors, emergency managers, or heads of security and public safety who demonstrate outstanding leadership skills, ingenuity, and selflessness. We name the winner for each sector at one of our campus safety conferences. The nomination materials we receive are full of impressive accomplishments and collaborations. We briefly outline these achievements on our website, but wanted to further honor the nominees and their hard work by conducting interviews where they can elaborate on some of these successes. In these interviews, finalists share some of their challenges and subsequent solutions they've implemented. We hope campuses that may be considering similar endeavors find value and guidance in these discussions.
One of this year's finalists is Cesar Gracia, Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police at East Tennessee State University. Gracia spoke about how initiatives to turn the department into an organization whose main focus is community policing led to the university nearly doubling the department's budget. He also shared how his 12 years of training officers at Walters State Regional Training Academy has helped him in his current role. Here's our chat.
Now, as Chief of Police at Eastern Tennessee State University, you were involved in officer training, and before arriving at ETSU, you worked for 12 years training officers at Walters State Regional Training Academy. And have you found, has the job of training police officers significantly changed over those years? And if so, how have you been able to successfully adapt to that?
You know, one of the biggest changes that I've noticed from when I was a director of the Law Enforcement Training Academy has been specifically de-escalation, interpersonal communication skills, duty to intervene, where when I started training back, that's been about 20 years ago almost, those were topics that we really didn't touch on. It was more of an aggressive type of line, so to speak, as we call it up here. However, obviously we realized, and nationwide, it came to our attention that we needed to do more de-escalation type training that was so crucial. And, you know, a lot of people, there was some pushback at the time. Some of the students that were like, well, we really don't need this. I know how to talk to people, but it really gave them a better understanding. So that, from that perspective, that is something that continues today. It's mandatory in the state of Tennessee. And even if it wasn't, we would require it here at ETSU. I'm a big proponent of it. I would much rather my guys talk the person through a situation as having to go hands-on. And personnel wise, when it comes to training, there's been a completely different change. I'd say probably in the last 10 years of the types of officers that we're getting. You know, when I started back in 92, we grew up in the 70s and 80s. It was a completely different environment. We spent a lot of time outdoors. We did our own conflict resolution, where now the new generation of officers, they rely heavily on social media platforms, things of that nature. So there's been some adjustments that we've had to make, but fortunately, we've been very successful with it and getting the employees here. As well as other officers within our region, because we train also our surrounding agencies, as well as we're even involved with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources. We assist in training their officers as well. So it's a very broad spectrum of law enforcement officers that are out there. But the key thing is just getting them to realize that, you know, there's always a better way to solve a problem. And those interpersonal communication skills are vital, not only to our profession, but to their survival out on the street.
Now, next question I want to ask might have some overlap, but looking at your Director of the Year submission materials before arriving at ETSU, officers on the campus weren't very active in community policing, it sounds like, and that changed once you took over. What were some of the major changes you had to make to significantly improve community policing? And again, it might be a little repetitive from what we were just saying.
Yeah. You know, I have always been a very big proponent of community policing, even before that title was coined. To me, it's extremely important that officers are outside of their cruisers, interacting with the community, and having experience of having worked as a road officer off a campus and then also as a state police agent. Those were experiences that I was able to acquire in a limited fashion. But once I moved on to a campus environment, I found that it was so much more important and, in my opinion, easier, because we don't have the high volume of calls that normally your street officers and county deputies encounter. So what I encourage my officers, and I explained to them, the end goal was we needed to be seen outside of our cruisers, meeting our students, faculty, staff, and visitors, getting them to know them on a first name basis. And, a lot of the officers bought in, some of the other ones didn't. And they've chosen different career paths. They decided they wanted to go work in the city and in the county because that was not their cup of tea, so to speak. But one of the biggest, in my opinion, one of the biggest success stories out of that, we implemented the walk and talk program. We immediately began to get feedback from faculty, staff, and students, and they were just very complimentary of the program. They really enjoyed seeing the officers out. It made them feel safer, and specifically when they got to know them on a personal level. Then, in addition to that, we implemented a Meet Us Before You Need Us campaign, which basically we set up a tent somewhere on campus, and we'll have hot chocolate, coffee, or some apple cider, some cookies. And we try to strategically locate our little pop-up tent where there's a lot of foot traffic, specifically with the students. So they come by, they drop in. We have a therapy dog that we'll bring her out there. The kids come out, they pet the dog, they get to know us, we begin to interact with each other. That has really, in my opinion, that has really began to highlight our campus police here at ETSU. Great feedback from the president's office on down. They're behind it 100%, which kind of has assisted us in acquiring equipment and things of that nature moving forward. Once they saw that we were doing more than just simply answering a call, getting back in the cruiser and driving on.
I've heard a lot of different names used for, like you said, Meet Us Before You Need Us. I've heard a bunch of different names. That's the first I've heard, and I think that's a really good one. I like that.
Thank you.
And now you had mentioned there were some officers who decided, this isn't for me. I'm going to go to a municipality or maybe just somewhere within policing that's not on a college campus. And people are often resistant to change, particularly those who have been in a job for a significant amount of time, no matter what career path they're in. Did you have pushback from officers regarding the changes you wanted to make? If you did, how did you approach those situations to kind of see if that was, they had resistance, but they would be a good fit, or if they had resistance and they kind of shoo them somewhere else?
Yeah, we got some pushback, and the way that I addressed it, I wanted to make certain before we began to implement the concept of community policing, we had all employee meetings, and then we had what I call command staff meetings, so corporals, sergeants, lieutenants, as well as myself, and we would meet, and I would, at that time was when I was trying to sell them on the idea and the benefits of how important it was for us to be seen, to be outside of the cruiser, things of that nature. There were, it was about 50-50 at first. We had some that had been here for many years and they were just used to just riding around in their cruiser, and when their time was up, they'd go home. So when please understand, we didn't terminate anybody on account of that, but they just made that decision that this isn't for me. I don't, because we also, when they were out of their cruisers, we required them to call it in to say, for example, I'm doing a foot patrol at Bergen-Dosset. And so that also allowed us to track how many contacts we were having within the college campus community. And we shared that monthly. Hey, this particular platoon has had 500 contacts. This other platoon only has 50. So then I was able to focus on the group on that platoon to kind of see if there was a problem. And eventually that's kind of how the shift came about. They realized, this was something that I was committed to and that the command staff was committed to. And we wanted them on board. And then again, those that didn't want to adjust, they found employment elsewhere. But the key thing for me as a chief of police was keeping my eye on the prize. At the end of the day, I wanted my campus to be safe. I believe in the community policing concept, and those relationships are so important because the same people that we were coming in contact with can provide information for us. Somewhere down the road, they might see something, they'll contact us because they know us, or they might contact the officer that they've befriended. So it was difficult, especially with the guys that had been here, 15, 20 years, and they didn't want to do it. And then those eventually moved on to other jobs. But the great thing about it, though, is we have a new crew that they're all in, which then helped us when it came time for trying to get making adjustments to our budgets if we needed more money, because the president and the administration that were seeing our guys work. Not to say that they weren't working before, but now when they're laying eyes on them, it made it so much easier to help us that way.
And now that you're on the other side of it, do you have any recommendations or tactics you use that other leaders who are looking to make change like this but are being met with resistance? Excuse me. Yeah. Any advice you have for them?
Absolutely. You have to maintain an open mind. A lot of times we don't see the forest for the trees. So I knew that I needed to have the officers, the guys that were actually out there doing it, I needed their feedback. And so it's very important to take that information and you it's like a living document, so to speak. You bring their ideas in, I look at what I had in mind, and then we kind of got together as a command staff to try to make the changes that are necessary. Even though we understand at the end of the day, the chief is ultimately responsible. To me, allowing your officers to have a voice when you're making changes, specifically a major change, is extremely important. You have to be flexible. You can't be a real strong type A that's not willing to change. I'll give and take a lot. If I have to make the difficult decision, I will. But I want my officers to know that when the program is successful, that they played a key role. And that would be my recommendation to other leaders, is listen to what they have to say and don't just go through the motions. Revisit it if you need to. Take a look at your ideas and revisit them and see what, can we find a happy medium, and then go out there and try it. That's kind of how we've been able to be successful here.
Yeah, and we were saying how, the officers need to be open to change, but also so do you, because maybe how you thought something should be or should work, or how your community policing plan, you might find a way an officer approaches it is better than what you had intended. So it's about being open all around.
Absolutely. And if I can add something to that also, one of the things that I'm a big proponent on is always give your officers credit. Even if it's your idea, if they're successful, I always make certain and let the administration know, and whoever calls us, I always give the officer credit. And that builds their confidence level up, their morale. They know that you're backing them up. You're very willing to support them and give them credit at all times, even though, again, I understand we are chiefs. The good and the bad comes our way. But a lot of times I've seen it happen as an officer. You do a great thing, the chief would get all the credit. I've learned from 30 years of law enforcement that that's not how I like to operate. I want my guys to get all the credit. And again, we've been extremely successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned budgets. A lot of limitations in campus policing come down to funding or budgets. Mm-hmm. And you were able to show school leaders the importance of the department and its needs. And subsequently, the budget was nearly doubled for fiscal year 2022-2023. How were you able to achieve this? Do you have tips or advice that would be helpful for other police chiefs or safety directors?
Yes. Again, and what worked for us here was the high visibility of having our officers just literally being outside of the cruiser and being seen within the campus community. Once people started to see that, and they started to realize, hey, these officers are out here, they're human beings just like us. They don't see us as someone in uniform, as we're accustomed to when we're out in the city or in the county. That was huge, specifically when it came time, for our budget meetings. A lot of times they would ask us, they would want us to produce a document with all of our accomplishments. So we would include, the training that we've done, who we've trained, not only our officers, but other agencies. But more importantly, I included the contacts that we had within our campus community. And that's kind of what helped, if they were on the line on whether we need to help them, give them more money or not. when they see their officers out there, they see that we're doing what we're claiming to be doing. That really helped us. And I'll say this, next year's budget, it's looking even better. I about fell over. I just had a meeting the other day, and yeah, I couldn't believe it. And then on top of that, because our officers have been doing such an outstanding job, our patrol, I just had a meeting specifically this morning. Our patrol officers will be getting a $3,500 pay raise this year. And then in November, an additional 5% increase in pay. So what they're doing, it makes a difference. Our campus is safer, high visibility, great interpersonal communications, and establishing relationships. It has also paid off on the officer side. So it makes our campus safer. The campus appreciates them, and they're being compensated for it. So I'm beside myself. I'm so excited about that. And by the way, I didn't get a pay raise either. They did. So that's what I want.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, especially now, the cost of everything is so high. $3,500 makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Especially up here in the mountains of East Tennessee. That's good money. Yeah.
And just going back quickly to what you said about visibility, and you had said patrols in high foot traffic areas. Staff and campus leaders are likely walking through those areas as well. And so if they see relationships being built, they're more likely to see that impact than, like you were describing before, just a cruiser driving down the street on campus. It does not have the same impact as seeing them mingle with students. So.
And Amy, I'll say this also, about a year and a half in of me being employed here, a lot of the faculty reached out and said they would just thank me for being able to see the officers. They're like, we're not used to seeing them walking through our hallways, going through the cafeteria, things of that nature. They say it has changed the environment. So, and again, I give the officers credit because they're the ones that have to do it, but it feels good when you invest time and effort into a project and then you begin to see it come to fruition. So it's been a blessing for us. It really has.
Well, congratulations on being nominated for Director of the Year. And I mean, I've read through all of the submission materials, and I really enjoy seeing what campuses are doing and changes that are being made. And it's been really great opportunity for me to speak to you and all the other finalists as well. And I've really enjoyed it.
I am truly humbled. You have no idea how humbling it is to have been nominated and to be named a finalist. And of course, my guys get the credit.